In the year 2078, happiness had become a tradable commodity, bought and sold just like stocks on the exchange. This was the future, where data ran deep and emotions were just quantifiable variables that could be scraped, analyzed, and programmed. It flowed freely within the neon circuitry of New Utopia City, home to EmotiCorp, the world's most influential emotion retailer. The stroke of midnight signaled a new cycle, and in the heart of the steel and glass behemoth, a hacking attempt seeded its way into the grid. This was no ordinary incursion. The hacker didn't seek money, power, or secrets. Zephyr sought to sculpt emotions, not for profit, but for principle. Zephyr was a mindsculptor, a rogue programmer with renegade ideas. He lived in the shady corners of the cybernetic world, carving out his existence in dark web communities. Unseen, unheard, elusive, and efficient, he weaved his magic in the minds of people, and initially, he was just a shadowy blip on EmotiCorp's radar, slowly building his reputation. Meanwhile, the streets of New Utopia hummed with anticipation, lights refracting off its polished surfaces, neon spray-painted against the night sky. Hoverboards whizzed by, cyber-organic pets leashed to their masters, neon signs flickered intermittently, and holographic billboards advertised, new memories for sale, find your forever happiness. Within the tall spires of the city, Atlas, a data analyst at EmotiCorp, logged another workday, oblivious to Zephyr's existence or his imminent hack. Atlas, with his slate-grey eyes and clean-cut beard, had a knack for detail that singled him out early in his EmotiCorp career. Now, he existed behind the holographic screens, sifting through colourful, emotional data, shaping people's digital, organic lives. Supermarket tantrums, first kisses, road rage, motherly love, ecstasy at a music concert. He had observed it all, so far detached from his true feelings that he was, ironically, more a spectator of emotions than a participant. Yet, Atlas was disturbed about how EmotiCorp was sculpting happiness. It was a topmost-ranking product. He believed in happiness through genuine experiences, not a manufactured, artificially implanted one. He had to keep his beliefs to himself. In a dystopian world controlled by tech moguls, anyone challenging system norms was a rebel, and rebels faced excommunication or worse. Atlas was just leaving for the day when his holodesk buzzed with an anomaly alert in EmotiCorp's system. A blast of red lighting painted his face in urgent hues. Impossible, he thought. Their firewalls were impenetrable, their countermeasures unassailable. Weary, intrigued, and a touch nervous, Atlas decided to stay back and inspect the breach. Meanwhile, Zephyr activated his custom code, a Trojan horse masked by billions of happiness signals pulsating across the city's neural dark web fibers. His mindsculptor depth interface lit up, shadows playing on his face, a glimmer of anticipation in his eyes. He intended to prove that the happiness industry was manipulating their happiness deficit only to sell them solutions. He hit the execute button, releasing the happiness code into the neural grid. Believing in disrupting humanity's manufactured gratification, he embarked on the most significant experiment to let everyone taste the elation of their happiest day, even if they had never lived it. New Utopia's central clock tower chimed, tendrils of neon purple illuminating the midnight sky. The countdown began, leaving the city on the cusp of an unknowing revolution. As Atlas stared at his holodesk, attempting to trace the breach, Zephyr leaned back in the shadows, awaiting the dawn of a new emotional landscape. The next morning, New Utopia woke up different. It was as if a wave had swept over the city while it slept, infusing the air with an uncanny buoyancy that made everything feel surreal. The usual humdrum of their routines carried a gleaming smile, a laughter too loud, a cheer too frequent. The happiness was infectious and intoxicating, permeating every corner of New Utopia, affecting everyone without prejudice. Zephyr witnessed the transformation from his secure, camouflaged cube. The ripple of joy he had invoked was spreading through the city like wildfire, lighting up faces, filling hearts, and unburdening souls. The happiness wasn't just an idea, it was consumption in its barest form. As the hours ticked by, people started sharing their experiences. Each person had lived the happiest day of their lives last night. It was vivid, immersive, a literal, out-of-the-world experience that was powerful enough to dwarf all their previous emotions. But Atlas didn't feel any different. He was exactly where he had been the previous night, surrounded by screens. With a heavy sigh, he scanned the lines of code flowing across the holographic display, failing to comprehend how a breach had led to such a widespread emotional uproar. The ripples of happiness, though, carried unforeseen consequences. Streets began to empty, parks and cafes filled, productivity started to drop drastically. Nobody wanted to work. Instead, they preferred to dwell amidst the ersatz memory, longing to cling on to the elusive emotions painted by Zephyr's code. As the day rolled into dusk, the city of New Utopia started to unravel subtly. Amidst the ever-present celebration, chaos was slowly creeping in. The city was losing its rhythm in the euphoria of artificial joy. People began neglecting their actual lives, for why would they grind their days in anticipation of happiness when they already had memories of their happiest day? Atlas watched the simmering bedlam in the heart of the city from his office, his mind on the anomaly he had encountered. For him, there was no time to indulge in the collective glee of the city. He had a trace to decipher, a hacker to catch. Where others saw chaos and ecstasy, Atlas saw a pattern, the work of a disruptor, uncovering the story written in code. As the day simmered down, Atlas got a lead. A ghost subroutine that wormed its way deep into the EmotiCorp systems. Its genesis was rooted in mindsculpting, a rather advanced pseudoscience even for EmotiCorp. He had caught on to Zephyr's shadow, with a resolve to uncover the puppeteer behind the city's emotional hijacking. Little did he know, he was about to encounter the greatest anomaly, far more intricate than the lines of the erratic code. Atlas sat cocooned in his corner as the city thrummed with ripples of chaos. He sat hunched over rows of holographic information, the soft glow of the screens the only illumination in the dark room. His eyes darted methodically over the endless lines of code, attempting to trace the rogue subroutine back to its creator. As a sea of codes popped up, he held his breath momentarily and then let it out slowly, both out of exhaustion and anticipation. He knew he'd made progress, tracking the ghost cycle within the vast matrix of EmotiCorp's neural network, right down to its birthplace, Zephyr. A rogue mindsculptor, a hacktivist, Atlas found an unexpected sense of respect for the elusive Zephyr. Even as New Utopia descended into euphoric chaos, Atlas was engrossed with the magnitude of Zephyr's operation. Quietly, he tapped the address saved in the system and followed the routes all the way down the rabbit hole. Meanwhile, Zephyr observed Atlas, curiosity evident in his determined gaze. He wondered what drove Atlas, what made him immune to the euphoria that had swallowed the city. He knew he had been seen for the first time, that Atlas had managed to trace his ghost cycle protocol, but he didn't stop him. Instead, he felt the thrill of discovery and the inevitable confrontation that comes along with it. In an unmarked building within the heart of Technosector 5, hidden carefully behind numerous holographic shields, Zephyr prepared for the moment his world would collide with Atlas's. A tinge of excitement flashed through his systems. Yes, he had plans for Atlas, the unsuspecting analyst, the city's only hope to return things to their dispassionate normality. Later that same night, Atlas made his way toward Technosector 5. Tall buildings veiled in a diaphanous sheath of neon colors towered ominously around him. He could sense the world teetering on the brink of chaos and knew it was up to him to hold things together. At the heart of the district sat an unassuming, inconspicuous building, the location Zephyr had cleverly concealed. As Atlas stepped into the vast chamber, he found himself in a minimalist space, filled with floating holographic screens projecting a cascading waterfall of codes and neural pathways. Standing amid the intricate web of streams was Zephyr, the rogue mindsculptor, a thin, medium-height man with wild hair, an unkempt beard, and sharp eyes. The confrontation had begun. As Atlas looked at Zephyr, he saw more than just a rogue agent causing widespread chaos. He saw a mirror of his own doubts and fears, reflected in the depths of Zephyr's fierce eyes. This was his true face-off, his moment of reckoning with the dystopia he had unwittingly been a part of. This was a meeting, not between an agent of order and a bringer of chaos, but between two beings wanting to break free from the chains of a fabricated reality. In the nerve center of Zephyr's operation, Atlas and Zephyr stood facing each other among the virtual screens broadcasting raw data. The silence was punctuated by the soft hum of servers and the subtle clinking of code. There was an odd equilibrium, an understanding that swirled like current between them. Atlas broke the silence. You caused this, the rampant elation, the breakdown of order. Zephyr nodded, pushing away some floating graphs. I did. We're creatures of feelings, yet we've traded in our fundamental right to feel naturally. We've allowed corporations to dictate our emotions. Atlas found it difficult to argue. He had the same doubts, the same guilt. He felt stuck between his loyalty to EmotiCorp and the gnawing suspicion that their business was inherently flawed. Zephyr's words echoed his fears, validated his doubts, and lent strength to his suppressed beliefs. Atlas posed a question. Do you believe your actions are justified? That causing such an upheaval, forcing people into a state of artificial happiness, is in any way beneficial? Zephyr met his gaze earnestly. Is it any different from what EmotiCorp does? I merely provided a taste of what they sell, only on a larger scale. The unrest, the dissatisfaction, is an indication of the imagined need they've created. They debated, philosophical conversations interlaced with pragmatic ones. Atlas played the devil's advocate, challenging, querying, often agreeing. It was a dance of words and ideologies, a war where there were no clear winners, only learners and understanders. Understanding Zephyr's perspective, Atlas proposed a solution. Let's reverse it, nullify the implanted memories, and then reveal the truth to the citizens of New Utopia. Let them learn to cultivate true organic happiness. Zephyr contemplated this, sensing the sincerity in Atlas's voice, the passion in his conviction. He nodded. Perhaps they need to understand what they've been missing. That night, they worked relentlessly, blessed by the neon hues of Technosector 5 bleeding through their windows. Undoing the hack was as colossal a task as the initial breach. It was a careful untangling of the happiness paradigm, a redact of the global euphoria without causing emotional harm. Just as dawn broke, the reversal code was launched. As morning lights washed over New Utopia, people woke up with the joyous haze evaporating. Life seemed to lose its inexplicable thrill, and a sense of surreal normalcy settled back, clearing the smokescreen of simulated euphoria. As dawn broke over New Utopia, Atlas and Zephyr were ready to expose EmotiCorp's scheme. Tired yet satisfied, Atlas contacted the citywide broadcast center to prepare for their revelation to the citizens. A part of him was anxious, scared, yet there was an overpowering drive to reveal the truth about the manufactured happiness. Stepping before the transmission podium, Atlas steadied his nerves. He spoke his truth about the emotion industry, the sterility and patterned hollowness of manufactured feelings. He talked about the intentional happiness deficit created to benefit corporations, about Zephyr and the cause behind the brief period of induced euphoria. The citizens of New Utopia listened, shock and realization lighting up their faces. It was a hard truth to swallow, yet it resonated deeply, shattering the perfection they had perceived. As the proclamation ended, Atlas felt a sense of peace washing over him, the sense of something shifting monumentally, the ushering in of a new era where emotions were genuine, not tailored commodities. Zephyr stood by his side, his job done, his message delivered. Lost in the aftermath of their revelation, Atlas was jolted by a discovery he made. As he navigated the depths of the code, he found traces of an early version of the happiness implant. The date on the file made him freeze. It was implanted years ago, well before Zephyr's mass hack. The subject of the implant was himself. It turned out that Atlas's entire life at EmotiCorp, his pivotal role in this revolution, wasn't his reality. Zephyr saw Atlas's face blanch. You were my prototype, he confessed. My early experiment to test the happiness implant. I made you believe you were a data analyst at EmotiCorp. The final twist of truth astounded Atlas. His life, his identity turned out to be a well-constructed facade. Atlas was a pawn, a guinea pig for Zephyr's experiment, an unsuspecting chess piece in the colossal tech chess game. But instead of shattering him, the revelation pushed him to action. He realized the true extent of the power such manipulations could hold, if left unchecked. As New Utopia absorbed the enormity of Atlas's revelations, the city reverberated with the tremors of a real emotional awakening, the first authentic thing they had felt in years. The unsettling truth about Atlas's life became a symbol of the fight against the exploitation of emotional data. From the heart of chaos, Atlas made his stand, leaning into the brewing storm with determination. The enormity of their victory was bittersweet. Unearthing the truth was the first step, and Atlas knew he had a long journey ahead, an emotion revolution to lead. And there, amidst the impending storm, a rebel was born.